Russ is an environmental scientist and wetland specialist in the ETS division. He's worked with the environmental section of the DOT for 3 years now, and before that he was with a consulting firm. He provided experience to clients on wetland and environmental matters across the Midwest and Great Plains. Russ has a bachelor's degree in restoration ecology and biology. Mr. Senske, we are ready whenever you are.
Sounds good. Thank you, Aaron. All right, wetlands. Let's get into the proverbial hydric muck of this topic here. First, I'll start with just gonna go over my quick agenda here. It's gonna be primarily just aquatic resource report reminders. I will go into some changes in reports and for field delineators. And then finally, I'll end on some unique scenarios. The unique scenario will be grade raises, which on these flooded areas, it won't be as cut and dry as a typical field delineation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A. Here's my email address if you think of something after the presentation, or if you want to just address something kind of off topic here, just send me an email. Okay, the first topic and reminder. I want to reiterate that the DOT, there are differences in wetlands. We have Executive Order 11990, which essentially, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's essentially regardless of the regulatory status by the Corps of Engineers, if it's a natural wetland, we still have to mitigate for it if we permanently impact it. So in the map here to the right, or my screen here, good one. You can see where the field delineation, map this all as one, but really we would like to see the created ditch separated from the natural, the riparian, and the other waters here. I know in the field as a delineator, it may not be that cut and dry, but a key giveaway to a constructed wetland is there's probably going to be a back slope. If you can't tell in the field, delineate it as normal, your typical standard field delineation, and then separate it out in the office. And a super handy tool is, I don't know if anyone uses it, I'm sure a lot of you do, but the NDGIS hub, here's the link here, but if you just Google NDGIS geospatial data, it'll come up. And then if you look at historical imagery or over several years of imagery, it usually gives you a pretty good idea of where that constructed ditch, wetland, and the naturals can be separated out. And I'm probably going to regret using this example, but I've gotten a lot of questions in the last year or more about, hey, is this a wetland or another water? There's standing water in it, it's flowing. What do you got? What do you want it mapped as? And really, there's a certain level of trust that goes into it. Me reviewing these in the office, I may see something totally different than what's in the field. Like, for example, right here, this looks like it's probably a stream, manipulated stream, ditch, and whatnot. But if you're in the field and you don't see this standing water like I'm seeing when I'm reviewing these reports, please just record a sufficient level of data to support your call in the field. If you feel like this is another water, I want to know why. I expect to probably see indicators of a ordinary high water mark. If you map it as a wetland, as we all know, wetlands do convey water at certain times of year and have surface flow. Like in this map here, you can see it looks like maybe there's some emergent veg there. The time of the year is important too when you're reviewing aerial imagery. This could be early in the spring. Are these legal drains that are dumping water in and why we're seeing an elevated surface water. Did it just rain the night before? And then the next slide here is, this is the exact same spot. So different years of imagery, different times of the year. So in this case, sure, I would definitely concur that as this was mapped as a wetland, maybe not over here. You know, what is this? Is this a manipulated stream? Is this another water? But at the end of the day, you know, whatever you map it as, I would expect, you know, you to back up your call with field data and photos. And then here's, you know, just an example of what our historic imagery looks like. You know, things look quite a bit different and our landscape has changed. So this, what we call a legal drain here, may actually be a relocated natural tributary. And then we do have a new table. Well, it's not really new. We added a new column. This column here is to help identify these constructed and natural wetlands. So if you know, let's say you delineate the wetland 1A, or just wetland 1, and you review the imagery and you see, oh, you know, there is a natural basin here, and you called it a ditch wetland. You know, so then we'd expect to see it separated out, and then the 1A and 1B. And then on our other waters table, we added a column, located in or relocating natural tributary. Again, going back to this example, you know, in the field, you may see this and call it a legal drain, manipulated stream, whatever, you know, and then you can see over time how it's been straightened. So in this case, I would expect to see other water, you know, 2C, artificially straightened stream, and yes, it is located in or relocating a natural tributary. And additionally, kind of staying on the same topic of other waters here, and Matt sort of, he addressed it earlier, we need to be sure what we're calling these features in the reports actually what they are. We need to call a spade a spade. In this case, you know, I don't have like the full image here, but this is a legal drain. And then in the report, it was identified as a seasonal stream. Really, this should have been described as an excavated or a man-made ditch. Calling it a stream has certain repercussions when we go to get a jurisdictional determination. So again, just please be sure and double check what we're calling streams. And you know, the rest of this description is, you know, spot on. You know, it's great. You know, we identify the veg, give us the NWI indicators of what was seen and identified in the field. Okay, the next topic here is wetland numbering. And this is straight from our design manual. If you have any questions on a lot of our delineation stuff, you know, that is a super handy tool. You know, we are in the midst of updating certain topics. So if you, I don't want to caveat it to use it with caution, but you know, if you use it and then still have questions or want clarification, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll gladly help you with whatever I can. So in this example, we have a wetland in the ditch here. It's connected via a culvert, and then so it'd be wetland 1, and there's a wetland on the other side. So we, you know, if it's connected, either it's a ditch wetland that has a natural or a created basins, we expect to have a alpha and numeric code. We need to be able to distinguish them when we look at the tables, and then when we're quantifying our impacts for mitigation. The same goes with other waters. Traditional other waters. I'll get to this other water -Ds here in a second. So traditional other waters, if you know, if this was a stream, we'd expect to see other water 1A and 1B. And you're probably wondering what these other water 2-Ds, 4-Ds, what these are. These are swale features, gullies that appear to convey water on aerial photography or in the field, just topographic depressions. And then when these are identified, to reduce confusion, we don't necessarily want the alphanumeric identification. You know, because if you read this, other water 3A-D, other water 3B-D, it's gonna end up probably causing some confusion down the road. So the only other water or resource that we're not gonna have the alpha and numeric identifiers are the other water -Ds. And again, please identify the culverts in the field. You know, these do get, you know, we do miss them, just they get overgrown with vegetation and whatnot, but you know, I mean, do your best. And then other water -Ds, I sort of discussed it here. They are, like I said, swales, gullies, things that appear green or to convey water. And we added a new other water tables specifically for these features. And we don't have the column of located in a natural because it's not that important for these. What is important is what we call them, the other water type. You know, if we call them intermittent or perennial, we expect to see indicators of a OHWM. So I would recommend, you know, again, using your best professional judgment in the field. You know, call them what they are, what you feel they are. And then for these other water Ds, I'll get into more detail later. You know, it's kind of new. You know, if you've done work for the DOT in the past, you understand what to do here. But we do require sample points to be taken here. We need to be looking for wetland criteria. So an Army Corps data form needs to be filled out. You need to use the NDDOT or the Army Corps of Engineers other water form. It doesn't make a difference to me which one you use, as long as you use one of them. Obviously photographs, and then again, label them ephemeral in the report if they're ephemeral. You know, if you find them to be intermittent, again, I expect them to probably be in the traditional other waters table. And then the last thing about these other water Ds is we do need them in the report described. So they need to be in the aquatic resource descriptions. This is a fantastic description of one, especially this sentence here. No wetland or ordinary high water mark indicators were observed. If you do find them, that's great. Put it in there, but I'll probably expect to see it in the other waters table. Here is the North Dakota Department of Transportation other waters form. I may have sent this out to you, but I felt like I sent out a fairly comprehensive list. But if I missed you, I apologize. The only real change is we added a not present box and more space for you to describe what you're seeing in the field. If you do have indicators here, you know, again, it's probably traditional other water, but if you don't find anything, it's dominated by smooth brome, snowberry, maybe, you know, I'd like to see the veg up here and then a not present checked. Here's more on the wetland and other water numbering. You know, in this scenario, I would expect to see wetland 2A for the ditch, wetland 2B for this riparian wetland, other water 2C, wetland 2D, you know, and so on. And then wetland numbering for the other water Ds. Again, maybe you present a strong case of why we should have other water Ds with alphanumeric, but I have a feeling they're going to end up just, you know, we're asking for typos and confusion here. More on the reminders here. So if you look at some of the DOT templates on our reference and forms, and we do have updated templates coming, any reference to relatively permanent flow or any indicators of leading the determination of a resource to be a preamble water, we need to remove those. They may be helpful and handy for us, but it's been asked by the North Dakota Regulatory Office of the Corps of Engineers to remove this. Same goes with artificial. If you want to call something artificial, artificial now equals created. This is a cut and paste of the North Dakota Regulatory Office, the minimum standards for acceptance of aquatic resource delineation reports. If you're not using that, I strongly encourage you to use that. But anyway, so this is cut and paste from there, and there should be no reference to artificial wetlands. And then there, in the report and the descriptions or the wetland tables. And when you're submitting your report with your GIS information, please follow our Appendix A3. It can be an absolute nightmare for me to try to distinguish feature classes from. Everyone has their own different way of, I guess, doing and collecting information, and what information is helpful to their GIS folks. But we have specific feature classes that we need in specific format, so I can upload them to our database and then get them onto our wetland base map for our designers. And then to, kind of talk about the minimum standards again and templates. If your firm has an aquatic resource report or a wetland delineation report that you guys are comfortable with, you have it down to a science on how to add things, right where things are, that's fine. You don't need to use the DOT's template, but your template must have all the required information that the minimum standards requires. So if you're not using our template, I would strongly encourage you to review your report with the minimum standards open next to it. Here's in our straight cut and paste from our design manual. These are the required sections that we need. If you change your orders up, I guess that's fine. But the one thing I've been seeing, or not seeing, I should say, are delineator credentials. I'm not trying to, just, so-and-so has got only 2 years of experience. Let me look at these a little bit harder. No, I'm not doing that. I just want to see that we're all certified delineators. Then the QA, QC, I want to see who, I guess, is reviewing them or is submitting them. Because sometimes when I have questions on, on a delineation, I want to try to talk with someone about it, and sometimes trying to get a hold of the individual who conducted the delineation is, out in the field or is hard to get a hold of. So either put a PM, or, someone's name here that's I can easily contact. And then more on, I just want to reiterate these other water -Ds. We've had more than a couple of aquatic resource delineation reports that have been rejected and sent back due to the fact that we are, quote, missing waters. So these are the sort of things when you're doing your pre-field delineations, things that look green, these are spots that you'd want to stop and take a look at, take your data point, other water data forms, photos. Here is the grounds. Here's an example of why the Corps I guess rejected an aquatic resource report. Right here, attached photo, one of these maps showing the drainages in the landscape. These need to be addressed. So right there. kind of switching gears a little bit, but still about aquatic resource reports. When you're doing the field delineation, we do require tree and shrub counts at the same time. And these need to be addressed in the aquatic resource reports. Even if they're, it's an urban area and there's no wetlands present, we need to at least, count the trees within your project area. If there's 2 trees found, a paragraph is fine, but ideally for me, a simple table just like this is perfect, because then I can just cut and paste and add it to our internal ledger. And then the criteria of what needs to be counted is this. I'm not going to get into the criteria of how to count trees. I think we're all pretty competent folks. So I'd just recommend see the design manual if you have any questions on, our procedures for counting trees. And just if you have any questions during the reporting or the field delineation phase, our reference and forms page has lots of templates up there. Again, our templates will be updated. I do still say look at our design manual. That is a pretty comprehensive document of support. Sure, some things need to be updated, but in the general, just big picture speaking, it's pretty comprehensive. And again, I'm gonna the minimum standards. If you're not reviewing that, or if you have any questions on your report, just take a peek at that. That again is pretty comprehensive on what needs to be. It's clear on what needs to be in these reports. So our templates are pretty much just, what's the minimum standards asking for. And again, any questions, call or email me. I'll gladly help do what I can. Sort of just a reminder, or I guess some remedial content here. These other water Ds need descriptions in the report. They need their own other water -D table. They need a core data form and an other water data form. And then a change, we were requiring ditches to be labeled. Back up here, something like this. We had our ditch segments labeled 30, whatever. We no longer need them to be labeled, but we do need flow lines. That here again is a cut straight from the minimum standards. Direction of flow should be clearly shown on a delineation map. So we still need flow lines. And then this is sort of a bombshell. I'm gonna just drop it right now. Medians do need to be delineated now. We're sort of working on, can medians be conducted via a level 1 office delineation, or do they need full on level 2 delineation? But I would say for any field work coming up, at least I would plan on doing field delineations for these medians. And then maybe your firm, or you've been selected, or you've done some grade raise projects coming down the pipe. What we expect, it's not the most cut and dry thing, but my plan here is to tell you what we do with it to help you understand of what information you need to collect to present to us. So if it's a flooded situation and there's no fringe wetland, map the high water line, or if there is a fringe riparian wetland, map the riparian wetlands, map the wetlands like normal. Do your best when you get to the office to try to determine where the deep water habitat, and so the lacustrine and the palustrine sort of separate. But I won't get too caught up on NWI and Quarton classifications, because a lacustrine system can still be less than 6.6 feet. But like I said, just do your best at separating out where you feel, because These water depths, other water depths are going to end up changing as soon as we get survey. So, oh yeah, and please let us know in the description if you feel that this is a temporal change. Is this just from one fall, winter where we got 30 inches of rain and snow? Or is this over the past couple decades, is this system actually starting to receive more water and actually changing in habitat types or classifications? Here's a actual representation of what one of these looks like in a report. This has got some lines on our fill limits and might be a little bit messy to look at, but here's what in a delineation report, they delineated the high water line, and then this firm also had the design, so their survey crew found the deep water 6.6 foot mark, and then they were able to draw this line in. And then ideally, this is what it looks like when we get our report. But I know that's not always possible. Here's a fine image of our wetland mitigation bank. So if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email. Maybe our Q&A here is blowing up.